Good Saturday afternoon, everyone. How are you? I hope you had a fantastic week. Guess what? It's the second Saturday in the month of October. So you know what that means. It's Women's Ministry Takeover. And boy, do we have a lineup for you today. This afternoon, we are going to be talking about Biblical Womanhood Deconstructed. Biblical Womanhood Deconstructed. We have some amazing women. They're going to be engaging on a discussion on being a Proverbs 31 woman in the 21st century. So if you're a woman, if you're a young woman, if you're a teenager growing into womanhood, if you know a woman, if you love a woman, then this program is for you. We have our wonderful moderator, our very own Miss Miriam Joseph. And joining her today, we have three amazing panelists. Dr. Holly Fisher Hickman, our own Twyla Grider, and Myla Farah Trenchuk. I hope I said your name correctly, Myla, but if not, forgive me, please. But these women will be talking about home, children, husband, running a business, managing money, all things that we do as today's 21st century woman. Stay tuned, sit back, make sure you're sharing this video, and enjoy this afternoon's discussion. Good afternoon, ladies.
Good afternoon.
And good afternoon, Church of the Oranges audience. So this afternoon, we've gathered to discuss a very timely topic, the biblical woman, deconstructed. Proverbs 31, what does it look like today in the 21st century? How does it apply? Does it apply? How do we fit? Is it every woman? Let's discuss. So I have some really dynamic women with me today, and I'm going to let them go through and discuss and introduce themselves. So Myla, we'll begin with you. Tell us about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me, Miriam. I'm so grateful for this opportunity and this discussion. I'm really excited and looking forward to it. My name is Myla Trenchuk, and I'm coming from Alberta, Canada. I am a mindset and success coach, but my full-time job is I'm a mom of 4 girls, ages 4 to, I have to think, 11. So we are a full household. I call it my beautiful chaos. So this study is timely because my 11 is going to like 18. So this is really good. So I'm really, it's my pleasure to be here with you ladies today.
Wonderful. Dr. Holly?
Well, good afternoon, and thank you again for this opportunity. I am Dr. Holly Fisher Hickman, CEO of Learning Healing Institute Incorporated, as well as Recharge and Rebuild, LLC. I am a visionary coach also. I am more than happy to talk about the Proverbs 31 because, as we know, women evolve. Even if we don't acknowledge it, we have to know that we're continually growing. So this is going to be a dynamite conversation. Thank you.
Wonderful. And Twyla?
Hi. I'm Twyla Grider, founder, creative director, and CEO of Stellar Creative Collective, a collective of designers and creatives. I'm also a mom of an 8-year-old and a designer by trade with an MBA in business and an MFA in creative arts.
Wonderful, dynamic ladies. And I, little old me, I'm just the founder of Kindred by Design, an eyewear boutique where we specialize in eyewear, glasses, sunglasses, designed by emerging designers from around the world. We also provide eyewear styling services. So if you're ever ready to elevate your frame game and express your style through your glasses, I'd be glad to help. Now, as you can see, we have a dynamic panel of women, and let's get into it. So ladies, we've all read and heard about the Proverbs 31 woman. Now in this passage, this is King Lemuel's mother giving him advice and counsel on how to govern himself and be the man, the leader of the people.
And when it gets down to the Proverbs 31 woman, it's an idealized version of a woman. This woman does it all, has it all, is it all. But my question to you is, after having read it, do you think that that one woman can encompass all these qualities? Or is this just a composite of what King Lemuel's mother thought a woman should be? Maybe she took a lot of different women and put it together. Or is this like one woman in 2020? What do you ladies think?
So let's go back with Lemuel's mother. In that time, mothers or fathers arranged the marriages. So it was behooved that she would have given the template as to what the woman would be for her son, who would be the successor. So we want to put that out there to make sure we understand the cultural context of what's happening. And then now move it into what we call the 21st century, because we all have those parents or those family gatherings that used to say, who's that person's kin?
Mm-hmm.
What's their mother like? What's their father like?
Yeah.
So that kind of cultural continuance of seeing about what is in the background that will help you lead into your future is also very, very a point that needs to be taken into consideration.
And I love that you said it, because growing up, whenever I was in a cultural event or in a cultural milieu, the question was always, what's your surname? Who are your people? Mm-hmm. So that definitely makes sense. Twyla, what do you think? Do you think this was a composite? Do you think she was a real woman?
I think it was the ideal woman. As I have two older brothers, so my mother had these conversations with my brothers. And so I think it was more so her ideal woman. And then I think it made it in the Bible in a way because it was what we should strive for.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maya, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, if this is a real woman, I'd like to meet her, to be honest.
Wouldn't we all?
He was everything.
Teach me your ways. But, it is, from what I've been reading and studying, it's a composite, it's ideal qualities of a virtuous woman, and not to use it as someone you compare yourself to, but more as inspiration, what to aspire to be. Right. And I think there's a lot of qualities that I would love to aspire to be, that, this Proverbs 31 woman has, and we all should.
Mm. So that's a perfect segue. So now let's go through and identify what are some of the qualities that you were able to glean from the passage. Like her husband is proud of her, her children think well of her. Yes, they do that because she has and she is. Right. So what does that look like?
So one of the qualities that resonates with me is that she is a safe space for her husband, because it says in the very first part that he trusts her, his heart trusts her. And oftentimes we talk about intimacy, but we don't talk about that level of trust where your mate can just go, in you. Regardless of what the crises or what the circumstances are in the relationship, he should be, or your family dynamic should feel safe to be with you. And a lot of us can talk about how we were sometimes unsafe in unsafe spaces and did not realize it. But I think one of those qualities is really because she is at peace with herself. He then can create that safe space, because we don't talk about that often, especially in the Christian context. We say we want to have a relationship with Christ and a relationship with others, but we don't really break that down. And oftentimes it is, I want to be able to be myself with you. So when the word says, when I come into your context, I should edify, I should move you to a different space. That's because I'm okay. But you can be okay with me. And just be you with me. So that's one of the qualities that resonates.
So it's like you attract what you are. So she has a peace and a settled spirit within her. so that she can offer it to her husband and her children. That's a very good point. Ladies, do you have any other points that you...
I just wanted to build on that because it's not just your partner or your children, it's everybody, right? And then it's there in the verses 14, 15, 16, 17. It talks about glorifying God with your body. So physical, mental, spiritual health, right? And I say this all the time, and you've heard me say it all the time. If you know, what I teach is you have to take care of you first in order to take care of everybody else, right? And that's one of the things that this chapter talks about, is taking care of yourself, your body, your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health, and that'll pour out in everything that you do. Yeah, that resonated with me a lot, because that goes into being a faithful bride, that goes into being a loving mother, that goes into being a cheerful spirit, So that is the core, it's doing the inside work, and it filters out in everything that you do.
I love that you said that, but at the same time, I'm thinking of the time context, meaning today a woman has a career, she has a family, she has a household to run, and oftentimes women feel depleted. You're giving to everyone all the time, and at the end of the day, what's left for you?
I know. I was looking at this and just building upon what Mila was saying. In order for her to do any of these things or be all of the things, she does have to take care of herself. But then the other thing is, then it lists all the things she is as a result of taking care of herself. Like, I love the fact that they talk about her strength. The chapter talks about her strength. She's strong. That resonated with me because particularly in my community, everything builds off of the woman. The woman holds my community up. It is literally on her shoulders. And the fact that quality is praised. And then it says this strength is given to her basically by God. So God gives women this extra something that gives her the ability to raise up and serve her community and serve her family in such a dynamic way. And the only way we're going to do that, right, is by taking care of ourselves so that we have that, we have that ability.
Well, let's break this down a little bit more. So it's not just the physical or the emotional part that we're talking about building up. It's now also building our relationship with Christ itself.
Exactly.
Because so in any relationship, when there's a fragmentation or a break, the person that senses the fragmentation now has to first look inward and then build on that. So even with that, and building the strength and attaining the strength and sustaining it, the woman has to have such an intimate, personal relationship with Christ. So when she is depleted, she can go, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. Attend to my prayers. Do all those different things that we're asked to do with other relationships, we have to do with Christ. Because if we don't do that internally, all of the things that we thinking are not coming out, I call it seeps. They seep. And you think no one sees the seeps, and they see it. So when we're talking about taking care of ourselves, our first point of context for me is to have that relationship and build on the relationship with Christ. So it should not stay stagnant.
It's ever growing.
It should move into higher and heights, because then that then gives the leaping power for the next phase or next parts of your relationship.
Okay, so this is great. So if I'm hearing you correctly, it starts with self-care. Keep your well full, keep your tank full, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally. Keep yourself right, and then you can affect change in your circle of influence, be it your home, family, business, community, church, the world at large. But I want to pinpoint now into these specific qualities that this woman had, so we can see how that fits into the woman of today. So one article I read, and it's one of the ones we probably it was in the reference material, but it's called The Biblical Woman Deconstructed. And it says she is hardworking and is a planner. She gets up while it's still dark to prepare her family's meals. She directs the servants. These are your tasks for today. Another quality she has is she has strength for the task at hand. So she's governing, she's directing activities in her sphere of influence. So she creates her own thread, her own material, her own bed linen, her own clothes. Lord, well, that's why we go to Lord and Taylor. But she does these things. For you, Lord and Taylor. She's entrepreneurial and creative. She serves her family and community. So it talks about she sees a good vineyard and she purchases it. She sells wholesale to retailers. Like this woman is phenomenal.
She's amazing, right?
Yes, indeed.
I was like, man, how many hours does she have to
Right.
Much more than 24 because to
Right.
deal with this.
That was the question I had.
Right. But how does that look for us today? Because what I don't want is for women to say, I don't have all these things. So am I deficient and defective? Is there something wrong with me?
Right.
Because A, I don't have a husband and children, or B, because I don't have a household to run, or does my life not measure
Fit
up there?
that,
And is something wrong with me? What do you think of that?
Can I get this one really quickly? I think there's a way to apply this in any given stage or space that you're in. If you take it back to more of a macro point of view, she's a hardworking person and she's a planner. Well, just because you're not married and doesn't have children doesn't mean that you can't plan your own home, or if you're working, you plan, they talked about her managing her staff. Well, if you're an entrepreneur and here you go, you have to manage your tasks. You have to plan out your day. You have to be creative with your budget. I mean, and that's at a basic level. And then you do have to serve your community and your family. That may be your aging parents. That may be your nieces and nephews. So I feel as though there's different ways to strive for these qualities. They don't necessarily have to be in the confines of marriage and parenthood.
So there are different ways to embody these. So you don't have to have them all, but apply it to your state, your current state of womanhood. And so what do you think these states of womanhood are? Like when I was thinking about the panel, when I was thinking about the different states of womanhood, I was thinking, well, the woman starts out single, right? And then maybe she marries, and then maybe she has children, and then maybe she's divorced, maybe she's a single mom, maybe she's widowed. But I think you'll find something in Psalms 31 that fits where you are. This woman in the word has the husband, the child, but we all can find ourselves in her wherever we are. What do you think of that?
I think we have to look at the high intellect that she is now projecting. And oftentimes we don't talk about intellect, we talk about roles and functions. So now when we're looking at the intellect of the Proverbs 31 woman, we are already socialized to be a planner. We are already socialized to think about those various different parts of our lives that have to intersect. We're different than men. Men compartmentalize, we intersect. Everything joins together.
Now, Dr. Holly, if I can interrupt you right there, you just said something very key, very not 2020. If you look at society is telling us that we're the same, equal and the same. And you're saying we're different, but we can be equal yet different.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So the socialization and the intellect to be able to then say, here's how you plan, let's just say your lunch for the day or your dinner for the day. We are already socialized to do those things. So I think oftentimes we go, oh, I can't do all of those things that she does. We do them already. Because we've been socialized to do so. Then the high intellect now dictates to us how we delegate those various different things, because she's not doing all of the stuff by herself. She's now using she's using different components within her family. That is the key.
She's delegating.
She is a planner. That means
Yeah.
she is the CEO, the founder, all of the things that each one of us are already. She is
Yes.
employing all of those things. So we are doing it already.
Yes.
In our intellect,
childhood.
from our intellect and our socialization, from our childhood.
From
We are
childhood.
taught to do various different things. I used to very quickly, I went to a boarding high school, and I used to laugh at one of my roommates because she had a notebook and she would write down every outfit she wore.
Mm.
Who does that in high school? And I thought that was the craziest thing.
Lila.
But but now that I'm older, then I go, I wore that last week. I can't wear that this week. I did this piece with that piece. That's a planner.
Yeah.
And whereas I thought that was just the funniest thing in high school. Hello.
You see the application of it.
Now I wish I had the little notebook that said, you can't wear that, because as a classroom teacher, which I used to do, kids will tell you in a minute, you wore that same outfit on such and such a day, and you're like, mind your business.
Stay
Stay in your lane.
right.
Did you wash my clothes? We would have this ongoing banter about, but we are already socialized with our intellect to do these various different things. And I think sometimes we don't give ourselves enough kudos, because we do it. We may not do it now to the extent that she's written about, but we do it with our intellect. We do. So we don't need to dumb down our intellect with this and delegating opportunities.
So yeah, I think it's really important to actually start applying this young, because and from my study of self-image is we operate on a self-image created in our younger years. So if like right now, a lot of this is fantastic because I'm like, I'm gonna just make sure I'm doing this with my girls. She serves others with love and kindness. She's a wise steward of the gift God has given her. That's financial planning, right? She's industrious and works with willing hands. She's a good manager. Like all these things, she spends her time wisely on. That is good. Like all these things are key for our success as adults, and habits that should be developed while you're young. So what you're saying about this roommate that was writing all these outfits, I have a daughter who has a planner, and just this morning when we're having breakfast, she's, what are we doing this week? Which is so great. Because in order for you to have a successful week, you need to get a hold of your calendar and create that order. Order is so key in our minds and in our lives, right? So I just love what we're breaking down here, because that's where it needs to start. It needs to start young.
Very good point. So that is a perfect segue to the second part of our discussion. So counsel from parents. So the information we get between generations. So the Proverbs 31 starts with King Lemuel's mother passing on wisdom onto her son, saying, I love you, the drink, don't get into it. Women, gold diggers, stay away. At the end, she comes back to that. She says, charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting. But this is the ideal. So what was some of the wisdom, the jewels, the words that was passed on to you growing up as to role? Were you taught role? Were you taught identity? Were you taught function? What was some of that information that came down?
It was interesting. I think I was taught role purely by watching the dynamic between my parents. I think that was probably more impactful than anything they said, was watching the dynamic between my parents. And there was this delicate balance. My mother's a mess and a half, to say the least. And it takes a very patient father because she says it. If it's there, she says it. But I did notice there were often times when there was an issue that they may not agree on, but at the end of the day, my mother would always say, well, Joe, you're the priest. We've talked about it. We've prayed about it. And I trust you. And there were often times when my dad would say, well, your mom is very good about this. I would ask her. So there was this delicate balance
balance.
of everyone kind of knew what their strengths and weaknesses are, not always, but pretty often. And so I would watch them do this dance of, you know, your mom's really strong here. My mother's very intuitive and very much an empath. So she kind of sees stuff coming before everybody. And everyone kind of trusts that because it's never steered us all wrong. And then for my dad, when it comes to certain things of the emotional level, everyone kind of leans on him because he's steady. And so I've grown, that was my cue of role, was it wasn't necessarily these neatly defined boxes by which they stayed in. Because my mother at one point in time was a stay-at-home mom. At one point in time, she supported our whole entire family while my dad went back to school. So there were never these neat little boxes that they were in. However, there were roles. And some of those roles switched depending on what the needs were for the family at that time. And I think that's what I learned was know your strengths, know your weaknesses, be willing to be flexible in your role, because given the needs of the family, which was the most important thing, then lies where your role is. And that's what I kind of learned growing up by watching my parents.
Okay. So is that the same for you ladies? You kind of modeled your idea of a role of, I guess, a woman or a wife or mother by your parents? Does that apply to you as well?
I'm going to defer to Mila because I have a wholly different.
Okay.
And that's how I grew up.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
And that's ideal. I didn't have that.
Yeah. You know, I was just going to say that children learn a lot by watching more than listening. You know, they do learn from listening as well, but it's an imitation game, you know. So my parents modeled, like, now that I'm at where I'm at in life, like I reflect back on when they were in this stage of their life, and I was like, ooh, it's pretty tough, right? You know, and there's a lot of hindsight and a lot of understanding now with where the path has led myself and my understanding of, you know, parenting. But my parents, the one thing that they modeled a lot was this love of Jesus. You know, my parents are missionaries, but they were missionaries for over 20 years, 30 years, I don't know, very long time. But they just loved Jesus and they served others with love and kindness. Like, this is what this Proverbs 31 is. And there weren't specific roles per se, but you know, my dad was the man of the home, right? And my mom, she was not a timid woman, you know, but she had her contribution to the family as well. She came from a matriarchal family, so the women are very vocal and very aware that, you know, they are there. And so that's what I came from. So I looked for a partner, you know, my husband, who is the opposite of me. So we do balance each other out. But like, you know, Twyla was saying, there's it's a dance. You know, there's a dance, but I don't see it as someone, you know, as myself being lesser than, you know, and I didn't see that in my parents as well. You know, it was a partnership, right? But I did hear the saying somewhere down the road, and I don't remember where I heard it, but I thought it was really good, is the man is the head of the home, but the woman is the neck that turns the head. So it is togetherness, you know. It is a partnership. It is a partnership. It is teamwork. And now that I'm a parent, you know, and in that sort of team, it's a very, like Twyla used the word delicate, because the children see it, you know, and everything, not just you do, but everything you say, it's taken as they're, you know, they're like, well, is that, you know, that mom and dad said, it must be true, you know. So there's a lot of care that needs to be taken in how you do treat each other in front of the children, you know, and even in private, because that will show up. you know. So I just love this whole chapter, because it just brings it back to that love for Jesus. And if you have that, that'll come in everything, show up in everything that you do. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
go ahead.
mine is a little different. I'm coming from a single parent home. I
Mhm.
was adopted, so that meant my mother chose me, whereas everybody else had you. Um,
Unique
and
perspective.
and she used to say it that way. She goes, "I chose you because God chose me to have you." And so I did not see roles. I saw function. My mother was a giving person. So the person, if you were having problems with your children and you needed a break, and I mean a serious break, our house was the house that you brought your child to. So I have cousins that look like Mila. I have cousins that look like Miriam. I have an assortment of family who we call family because people said, I need you to do this. And my mother would go. So I've learned that function of serving. So, but I also learned some other not so good qualities, and I mentioned this in the Bible study. My mother was a single parent, and I think she did that by choice because she did not actively date. So I did not see that dance that you all alluded to. The power play was she was the one that was in charge, and I was raised in old school. You do what I say. And I used to tease her when she was still living. I was like, do you know it took me till I was 26 to tell you I didn't like green peas? And she goes, I already knew that you didn't like it. I'm just waiting for you to say something. You know, so that's the kind of banter she and I had. But she was a very strong individual. So as I was growing, and especially once after she passed, and certain things I would do in church, ladies would come up to me and they were like, girl, you're starting to get like your mama. Because my mother would say exactly what she meant and meant what she said. And it wasn't in a nasty way. I like what Iyanla Van Sant used to say to one of the clients, nice, nasty. We all know that's passive aggressive. My mother was nothing passive aggressive. She said what she said. And if she realized that it was not maybe in the best, she would go back to the person I've actually watched her go, you know what, let me say something to you. What I said prior to, I apologize because that wasn't, or what have you. So she was very intentional in what she did, in the spaces that she understood and the ones that she chose to in-house. Because I did not see or have, now the father figure I had died when I was very early on, when I was 9, and that was my uncle. She and he had a dance, and it was some kind of dance that they would project. He was her protector in some ways, and she was his in some ways. So when he would take me out, she didn't have any words. She didn't say, you better do da-da-da with my daughter, or Holly, you better do such and such. She was like, okay. So there were times with this proverbial 31 woman that my mother was willing to relent some of her leadership, to give some of her power away to persons that she knew that would round out that part that she could not quite do herself. So that was important for me as a single person to see that. And then also notice the things that she was not able to give, that I then had to go to the Lord and go, I need you to put this in me because my husband is lacking in this area, or I'm lacking in this area to give to my husband. Because one thing, and with this, I'm gonna be quiet. Abraham Jules just said this recently. Woman was created to be a helpmeet, but she was already whole.
Okay.
She is woman. The man was whole. And then God created the woman. She was already whole. We are to be each other's helpmeet, a complement, not, oh, he completes me. And that was my socialization for so long. So then when we talk about the self-care and having the grown-up relationship with Christ, then you go, I am whole in you, Jesus.
All by
So I
myself.
then can be whole with my husband's. But so my mother showed some of that parts, and one of her favorite texts was, creating me a clean heart, O Lord, and renew a right spirit within me. So that was something very personable that she would share. And we would do this on Friday night, and she would go, come, let's pray. And I could hear her as the woman, not my mom. Because when I got out of grad school, my mother became my best friend, where it was, girl, let me tell you what's going on now. And I remember something happened dramatic during graduate school, and I came and I was like, Sue, that was her name. Sue. And she said,
Oh.
so, because I came from an old school household. She said, put something next to that Sue, because you will never be my equal. Let's get that straight.
As long as you live.
Never. Let's get that straight. So it is Susu. She became Susu Honey. Susu Honey, as the woman, became my best friend.
Oh, beautiful.
And my mother. So there's something to be said when we talk about how we as women groom each other, whether we're in a nuclear home or a single intentional home. She groomed me. And then also allowed me to understand the things, those limitations that I had to then go, Jesus, I need you to do this, because she wasn't able to.
So this is
that was
great.
the context.
I'm sorry. Great.
Go ahead.
What I wanted to ask next, that bleeds into the next question. And this could have been your mother or your father. Did they ever give you jewels or instructions or guidance on how to conduct yourself?
Oh, yes.
What is some of that wisdom that your mom told you, or your dad? How to conduct yourself?
My parents
through life.
Yeah, my parents always are dropping jewels. I promise. Like my dad, the main thing that sticks with me to this day as I conduct myself is you don't just represent yourself, and your last name is Grider. And with that carries responsibility, because you are a reflection of me. You are a reflection of your mother. Anybody that holds that last name, you are a reflection of. So therefore, there are certain things and certain places and certain people and so forth that, and I can't say I always hold on.
Right.
I'm not perfect in this. But I try my best in most situations. I hear that in the back of my dad, remember who you are, remember your name, remember whose you are, was the other piece of that. Your God, not only are you my child, you're God's child, and can conduct yourself accordingly. And then Miriam knows all the little isms that my mother says, because I'm always like, my mama said, don't leave the house without eyeliner and mascara. My mama said, I'm always quoting my mama. And so I know Miriam's always like, Mama.
Never leave the house without eyeliner and mascara.
Yeah. So my mother always had these little things, and she's sharp as a tack lady. So and very Southern. And so there's all these colloquialisms and customs and things that come along with being a Southern woman, which is something totally different. That's a whole other discussion of Southern women.
Okay, culture bleeds into it.
So being a Southern church going first lady,
that's a whole nother topic.
It's a whole situation. And so with that came so many things. You don't walk out the house looking crazy, like all these little things that happen. But when I had my son, there was a whole separate conversation that we began to have, taking care of myself and how important that was. Continuing to be wholly yourself and not losing yourself in parenthood. That was some of the best advice when I had my son Maxwell. I was fortunate to have her with me for a month. And she loved on me like, boy, and I needed it because I was scared to death. And she taught me just, Twyla, you may be very passionate about that. Pull back a little bit. Just pull back a little bit. Approach it when you have a cooler head. All of those little things, my mom, as I've become an adult, we've been able to have those type of conversations, and she would give me words of wisdom about parenthood, about being a parent of a boy, and how important it is to give him some autonomy and not baby him and let him bruise himself so that he can understand the consequences and all those things. And not in being his mama and his love, but equipping him with the ability to eventually be in love with someone else.
Right. That's so important.
That's very important.
So
because
important.
Parents, the idea of roots and wings.
And they forget that.
Yeah,
sometimes.
and being a mother of a boy. And being a single mom, and the things that I will need that I will not be able to provide for him as a single mom of a boy. Right. So these are the things that my mom had, that over the years she's given to me and spoken to me about, and has created who I am as a mom, is directly a reflection of those conversations with her.
Now, can I pivot to you, Mila, being that you have a Filipino background? Did you get similar information and guidance growing up, or was it different?
You know, it's interesting, Miriam, because I grew up all over the world, right? So I'm ethnicity is Filipino, but my parents being missionaries, I lived in Egypt, the Middle East. We were in the Middle East for 8 years. So that's a whole, oh my goodness, different culture than what, you know, that what Filipino is, and in Africa and in North America. So it's a mishmash of culture that I was raised in. A lot of actually where women are not seen as equal. Okay, so they're covered, you know, they're can't talk, can't be in this room. You have to split sides. Men sit here, women sit there. Like that's what I grew up seeing, okay, in my external world. But my parents really modeled, I can't even say it enough. They're like the most Christ-like people, and just love of Jesus and God is just so imminent in everything that they do. And one of the things they pass on to me and my brother is the heart of service. Okay, just having that heart of service. And anything, like, can I bring you a meal, you know, or can I give you a ride, or can I pray for you? Like from little to big, you know, and they just have such a big heart. And even if they don't have it, they still give it because they know that the Lord will provide. Yeah, so really not just that's heart of service, but faith. You know, that God will provide for them. And I remember in university, I graduated from Andrews University, and I came from another university. And I had a choir dress that I left there. And I told them, just sell it. I don't need it. It was not a fancy dress, or flattering for that matter. I was at Andrews, and I was like, man, I haven't got my paycheck. I'm spending too much money. I need a little extra. I'm like, okay, Jesus, take the wheel, because this is driving me nuts on how I'm going to figure this out. Prayed, let it go. Like, you know, asked for it, released it, and I'm like, ready. Go downstairs the next day. I got a letter in the mail for a $50 check. My dress sold.
Oh.
I'm like, oh, really? I was like, yay. It wasn't the way I expected, but I was taught to just give it to God, you know, whatever it is, in that faith, just give it to him and be faithful that he will answer your prayer. And it never comes the way you expect it.
I tell you.
It never comes the way you expect it. The dress sold. It was not a fancy dress. And $50, I was like, that's pretty good. You know, so those kind of things, and it will show up in your life. And if you understand that and teach that to the ones you love, the ones you influence, that is the biggest lesson, I think. That, and one more thing before I pass it on, is learning how to make a decision.
Yes.
That's huge. Decision that you think through.
So big. And not just do this, do that. You can't hang out with that. You can't eat that. You can't wear that, you know, because you become an adult who doesn't know how to make a decision. So from young, my kids, it's always this or that. You want to wear this outfit or that outfit? You know, you want to eat this or you want to eat that? Or here's a buffet and you need to have three of the vegetables and one protein. You know, there's options. You make a decision until you know how to make your own decision. I cannot make a decision for you and expect you to know how to make a decision. So that was the one thing that I learned from my parents. And it's a dance my husband and I have with our children, you know, but it is so powerful in that my 4-year-old knows exactly what outfit she wants to wear, and knows the kind of meal that she wants to eat. And, you know, and I don't want to hang out with that person because they're not nice. I want this. I like this person. They're nice. It's so powerful.
Yeah, early in life that they learn to assume these things. And I feel like that's something you and Twyla also have in common, because I love that you give your children options, and sometimes you even ask them permission. Like, Max, may I?
Yes.
Let me tell you something. This is not to speak poorly of my cultural heritage, but you weren't asked. This is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to wear.
And you better like it.
This is how you're going to feel about it.
And you better like it.
Fix your face. Fix your face.
So now my favorite thing when I was teaching was shut your face.
Oh,
the kids would go, how do I do that? Close all of this down. All of it.
And you see how we both know what it means?
Yes. And I still do it. Even when I was teaching college, shut all of this down. Because this isn't so my mother was the OG. She was the original gangster, for real. Because as a single mother, my mother worked in a racist environment. And I remember one day, as a political science minor, how do you do this? Why don't you do such and such? She said, hold up. I had one special person I had to take care of. So it's sometimes my face could not reflect what my mind wanted to say. My mouth could not say things the way society thought I should have said. So she said, I was very savvy. So she used to tell me, and I remember this clearly, whatever you don't want repeated, don't you put it on paper.
Okay.
Don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. You don't need to tell everybody everything all the time. So she said, when I would have my racist supervisor, my mother was a learned woman. She didn't finish college because she had to go home to take care of her siblings when her mother passed, but she was a learned woman. So she said, when he would come with all his old crazy stuff, she would go, She said, I still did what I needed to do in my job. So one of the most profound things to me, when parents used to do overtime, they would stay after their duty station hours, right? I would remember my mother leaving the house at 2:00 in the morning or 1:30 to do her overtime before her duty station hours began. She says, I'm always leaving at 3:00. Have a good day. And that was it. He couldn't fight her on it because she had already done her hours. She now put in her normal duty hours because she worked for federal government, for Department of Defense. She goes, and I've done my job. Toodles. That was so revolutionary because she took charge of her narrative before we even started talking about that thing in those terms in the 80s and the 90s. My mother, when she retired, I said, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? She goes, excuse me, we? I have been doing this, me and Jesus, for quite a long time. My mother, when she retired at 37 and a half years in one agency.
Okay. Oh.
She goes, I've done my duty. God will do the rest. And I used to ask her, well, what kind of advice would you give us now? We need to, in this racist society, do what you have to do, but don't always open your mouth. Let your works show for themselves sometimes. So when I was involved in the Million Man March as a historian, because if you remember, they said women don't come, especially if you're looking for a man and all of those.
Yeah, fallback.
And you saw all of that. I went there as a historian because it was just so profound. And my mother said, what did you learn when you came back? And I told her my whole day, and she goes, do you know that was revolutionary, and not one of those men that made the impeccable or indelible impression upon you said a word. They acted. She said, sometimes you just act.
Mm-hmm.
You don't always have to mouth off.
Yeah.
And she goes, you're mouthy.
Mm.
You need to close it sometimes. Because everybody doesn't need to know what's in here.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And she would put on this game face, because she was active in a lot of church auxiliary societies and organizations that we have in our particular denomination. And if something didn't go right, or she would sit in church and something she didn't like, and I do this now, she would cover her lower half of her mouth and her face, because you couldn't say anything, because you didn't know what she was thinking, because she kept her eyes straight. But then you could go like this, you could see it. But she showed it. So I do this now. So my friends who really know me, they go, you don't like something. I said, don't do anything. Just so my mother was very savvy. And to be a single woman in a racist environment for work, be a single be a single parent at church, to be a single woman in society. And then she was older. So she played a lot of different roles and a lot of different functions. And she did it with such grace. So when she passed, I knew she had done her time. She had done what God had required of her. And she used to say, she said, the folk that live long, that means God has to work with them longer. I need Jesus to come and rectify whatever it is. So when I told my mother, I'm going to be okay. Now I was lying, because I didn't know what I was doing when she was passing. But I knew she needed to know that I would be okay. I said, I'm going to be okay. And she looked at me, she goes, you better. And with that, all of the functions started going down. But that savviness was all the way till the end of time. So one last thing, she was in hospice and someone was singing to her. And my mother and I are musicians, and the person was off key. And my mother looked at me. I said in her ear, you are not going to be Sue Fisher while you are dying. What are you doing? She sat like this.
Eddie.
So I had to quickly move that person out of my mother's room, because she wasn't speaking. She was not doing this anymore. It was. So I had to gently tell Sister so-and-so, thank you so much. She's just getting a little tired. So, and I said,
she had gotten to a point where she was over that.
Yeah.
This is how I don't have time to mess around with you.
So let me tell you, as she was dying, I was singing to her A Better Day. This is a song, if some of you don't know, by the Wright sisters, the Wright family, a gospel family in our denomination. And I got off key, and she looked at me. I said, I will start over. And she was like, in her deathbed. I said, wait a minute.
She was authentic to the end. She was authentic.
She was herself. And when I started again, you could see her go, okay, now you're in the right key for your voice. What were you? I don't know what you were doing beforehand. My mother was authentic, intentional, deliberate, and highly intellectual. And I call her the OG because you knew when you saw her, you knew she was doing whatever it is she thought God was directing her to do. And the things that she did not do well, she allowed me the allowance to see her when she said, Jesus, create in me a clean heart and renew a right spirit within me. So when I wrote her obituary, I said I was able to be with her in her quiet moments when she's talking to Jesus. And I think that was one of the most profound things I could have done. So when I started teaching both in private and public school, because I'm the same, I would tell folks, we're going to pray. And one little girl would go, oh, it's a public school. Well, sweetie, you don't have to close your eyes. You don't have to do anything. Sit there. But y'all need the hovering of Jesus in it. My mother taught me that. My mother used to teach in a one-room classroom. She taught from grades 1 through 12, dynamic. I said, how did you do that? She goes, God gave that to me. So when I started teaching, and with this, I'll close with what she used to give me. And I'd come home and I'll go, come on, girl, let's go to the mall. Let's do da-da-da. She said, I'm good. So after a while, I was like, well, wait a minute. Is this something I said or did? This is something what's going on? She goes, you didn't do what you were supposed to do today. Excuse me, madam. you dropped me off at work. You know I didn't come home during the day. What are you talking about? She goes, but the fact that you have all this energy, that means you didn't give anything to your children.
Oh, wow.
I started teaching in 1995. That thing has stuck with me. She goes, if you're not exhausted,
Oh,
if you are not bent, you did not do what you were supposed to do. The following week, I came home. My mother said, "Oh, girl, how are you?" I said, "Honey, let me." What was my name again? Because I don't even. She said, "Oh, you did what you were supposed to do today. You worked today."
Mm-hmm.
My mother was a worker, both for church, for God, and society. But she worked for me to show me what womanhood was, without ever saying, "This is what a woman does."
Oh,
She worked
yeah.
to the end.
I feel similarly about my mom. She said some things, but how she carried herself told me a lot. And my mom had her work cut out for her in the sense that, as far as I can remember, she was a single mom, right? I don't remember my father being in the house, and then my mom remarried. But there was a stretch of time where she was on her own. And I would walk into rooms sometimes, and she'd be cleaning something or wiping something, and her mouth would move. But there'd be no one in the room, and there'd be no sound. Mom, what are you doing? You know, it's later that I came to understand. She said I was talking to God. Because how am I supposed to take care of you children and do all of this? So she taught me to lean. She taught me, you know, keep that conversation going. But my mom was also, I don't know, there wasn't a word for it. There was a way. And when my mom, when she got dressed and she was going out, she would say, "How does your mother look?" Oh yes. And her hair would be together, and her clothes would be on, and her shoulders were set back. How does your mother look? And I would just sit and look at her. Oh, my mama looks good. She said, "You're right. She does." And her hand. I'm sitting down, so I can't show you her hand.
Oh, come on.
Do this.
Yes.
Yes.
My mother did the same thing. She had a pose. It was always like this to the side.
Looks good. Yes. She was going out and she looks good. And so I would just glean from that. But at the same time, I'm the only girl with multiple brothers. I have 5, 6 brothers. So they were concerned about me because I like more boy things. I like G.I. Joe and tents and all these things. And so they said, "Oh, we can't let her be too masculine. That's all she's around." So they got me the dolls, and I didn't like the dolls. I don't know how she did it. Oh, I do remember actually. I was going to be in one of my aunt's wedding, and they said, "Now the work of forming has to happen." Okay. I was nothing like my mom with the hands. I wanted to be outside. I wanted to be climbing, running, playing tag. And it's like my mom, grandma, and aunts decided we have to draw her up now. And I had to wear mini heels for this wedding. What do I know about wearing heels? I want to be outside in the dirt. And they put textbooks on my head, and I was to have my arms out, and I was to learn to balance.
Yes.
I had to learn how to walk.
Yes.
Okay. And so my mom, when she was out in society, she had a way she spoke. She spoke her mind.
Yes.
This is what's going to happen, and this is what's not going to happen. Okay. So she was she was poised, she was articulate. You weren't going to run roughshod over her. She was a woman, and she wore it. She assumed it. Now, I never thought of these things, but as I'm having these conversations, it's like, wow, sometimes the information that goes from generations is spoken, and sometimes it's something that comes up in you when you reach the stage that you need it, and sometimes it's something you observed that kicks in at the time that you need it. She was very much that way. But I'll tell you something else about my mom. Very dynamic, strong woman. And she taught me also about business, how to run your home. How to run your home. When I wanted to run and play with my brother, she says, "No, you have to be inside here with me. You have to learn how to cook." And all that. That was the last thing I wanted to know. Oh, you have to know how to make a steak. You have to know how to prepare a meal. I said, "There's restaurants, Mom." She said, "Yeah, but you can't." You know? So I was forced to learn, and she domesticated me. And But concerning business-wise, she said, Miriam, you have to learn to not only bring in the money, but to manage the money.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about, what is it people say about, what do you bring to the table? She says you have to be able to buy and own the table too.
Yeah.
Okay, you have to be able to do that. And she says for every dollar you bring in, put 10 cents away for a rainy day. So all this time, because how does a single woman raising 5 children on her own manage to go from what I knew her to be to what she is today? This is her and God, this is a work. So she set the platform such a way that manage your business, manage your health, carry yourself in such a way. And this is how we're operating in the world. So sometimes my uncles and aunts look at me and they say, oh my goodness, you're a mother. Like my mom might not even be there and they're like, oh, you're just like your mother. And I said, that's a compliment. You ain't never said that. That's a compliment. I will take all of that. So this is just to tie in how that information passes through. It's DNA, but it's also observation. And we have to be mindful. Those with children have to be mindful, but I have nieces and nephews also.
Yeah.
Miriam, I was going to say that as a single mom, I have an aunt, my dad's sister, who was single for a while with my cousin. And every summer I would go to stay with my grandparents, my godparents, and my auntie Gay. And one of the things that she was strong, I mean strong, like literally everybody feared her. It was a good, healthy fear, but people knew Auntie Gay meant business. But she raised a boy for an extended time by herself. Yes, she had a village, but she raised my cousin Antoine to be such a responsible, good dad. He is an excellent dad, and he's a good husband. And she did that. She did that. Now, later on, I mean, she had the help of sometimes my dad and other people, but she did that. I didn't realize I was going to use the tools. I didn't realize I was going to use all the things that I had observed growing up from my aunt. And then when I had Maxwell, boy, did some of that wisdom kick in immediately. And I was able to have conversations that I could not have with anyone but my aunt about being single, mom, to a boy, a smart boy, a precocious boy, how to give him tools now to do what Mila says, making decisions. And so there is a level of respect that I give to my son as a person. I treat him as a person versus just a child. And yet there's a level of respect that I demand as the woman of my home. There's a delicate balance, and I believe in part my aunt is responsible for that. And so these aunties, whether single, married, other, are so important when raising children, because they're able to get into spaces that parents can't get. They're able. I have an Aunt Gail that I have conversations about men, honey. And she gets deep down into it. And she's like, honey, let me tell you about this. Women in general are able to get into spaces with people that other people just don't have. That's our gift. That's that nurturing piece that God gives us.
Intuition.
That intuition, all of that God has given to women specifically. One of the articles that you gave us, Miriam, to kind of prep for this this conversation, talked about these gifts that women had and the discipleship that they had, that Christ, there were specific things that God, it was a woman that stayed there when God breathed his last breath. And it was a woman that was there when he was raised from the dead. And it was a woman, all these things that specifically women were there that the men, to be quite frank, did not have the capacity to do.
Who wrapped him in
And-
spices? Who embalmed him? Who got prepared the body?
Exactly. There's this nurturing piece that comes from a woman. And so God gives us this very specific, very special gift. And so therefore, God always charges the man to love and cherish your wife as God, God loved the church. There's this, he speaks about women in a totally different way, and I think sometimes when we think about women in our role, it's so misconstrued, because the way God looks at a woman.
Can I interrupt you right there?
There you go.
Right there.
Yes.
I think Peter is the one who says, woman, respects your husband, but husband, love your wife. Why
With
do you say
understanding.
that?
With understanding.
With understanding.
With understanding.
So it might be equal but different, and we bring something different.
It brings
That love and that nurturing comes automatically. That's why he didn't have to say, woman, love your husband.
Yeah.
She's already going to do that. But husband, don't forget.
Yeah.
Right.
I always talk about my girlfriend group. Maxwell has a circle of aunties. And we call each other the aunties to different people's children. So the aunties got together and we decided. The aunties said, I have a goddaughter, she's 17, Zoe, and when her mom had her, her mom was 25 and scared, and there was a lot of things going on in my sister friend's life, and the aunties rallied. The aunties knew, mom needed a break. That's okay, Zoe, come with auntie. I didn't know anything about raising nobody's babies, nothing, and I'm surprised that she even entrusted me to have her child for a weekend. But listen, I was not, but we did it. We did it. And I look at my goddaughter now and how beautiful and how smart, and the aunties rallied. There's something to be said about a woman group, a female group. They give in different dynamics, and these children learn from us in a different way. And it's so important because the men give them something different. Zoe has a set of uncles. Her Uncle Austin does something totally different from her than Auntie Twyla.
So that leads me, I'm sorry, Holly, did you want to add something?
I was going to say, if we look at different examples of the Bible of women, so if we look at Zipporah, there's a point in the story with Moses where Moses was supposed to circumcise the sons.
Yes, and he didn't do it within the 8
And he did not do it, and he was about to miss the blessing. Zipporah said, hold up, snip, snip. Here, Moses, put this in your hand. Let's go.
Yes.
Women, and this is from a friend of mine. She and her husband have what they call marriage menders. And she gave a sermon, and she goes, women are the spiritual barometer of their home. And we look at these examples of the women in the Bible. So these women of color, let's be real, are taking on roles that they know their husbands were supposed to do, and they have not done it. So Zipporah now deals with the circumcision and the blessing of the household. Job's wife, even though we put her in a negative light, she does not. She says, either you're going to curse God and die, or you're going to accept this lot and move forward. That's a whole different interpretation that we've been given. We always have her, she's negative, she's telling Job to die. She is not. She's like, get yourself together.
Yeah, that's what she said.
That's what she said.
Get together. Snatch.
Come on.
Yes.
Grow some. Either you're going to be this way or accept this. And because here's the thing, she's the one constant. They lost everything, but he kept the wife.
That's very interesting.
So if you look at the wife also now in Proverbs 5, when it talks about the adulterous man, she's still there. Because at the end of the chapter, God said, now husband, only go to your fountain. Be satisfied with your wife. So she's still there in the midst of his foolishness. Because God said you do adultery because you lack understanding. She's still there. And if you keep moving throughout scripture, you see how women just stand in that role, in that function, and moves their family to a different point where the husband can then go, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay. Because now we talk about Moses being the leader of the Israelites. However, before God calls him, the woman moves him into that space to be able to hear God first.
That's a whole word right there. That's a whole word right there, because now we're going to move into, we have to discuss the idea of, I don't know what's the best word, if it's role, if it's function, Maybe function is better because role is problematic. But what you're describing is like a woman who had a function. The adulterous man was doing his thing, but she stood constant. The woman who prays over her husband. The woman who does this and that in the house to keep things stable and steady. Like in Proverbs 31, winter's coming, she's not worried because
That's
they have
right.
scarlet. And what is scarlet? It's fine linen, fine
Yep.
wool. Like they have what they need because I've done what I had to do. Now, we are living in a time, we're talking about the Proverbs 31 woman in the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some might say it's very archaic, the description of the woman, and how does that apply today? I find that where we are right now in society, there's this idea of maybe androgyny, maybe a fusion of the two.
Or fluidity.
Or
Non-binary.
between the two. What's masculine, what's feminine? And okay, so how does a woman now, so in the context of Christianity and God-fearing and Bible-reading people, I think that kind of shifts the conversation, right? There's a broader, we live in this world today, and then there's those who believe and are believers, and this is your model. What is your idea of the ideal woman today, encompassing the idea of Proverbs 31? Like, how does that apply? What does that look like today? Because we just talked about this woman who takes care of her household. She buttresses her man. She's that support. She helps him shift from one space to the next. This is very special role. But how does that work today? What's that look like?
I think it's an allowance of understanding that God still has a role for us to play. So that's one. When we look at society, even if we were to, on a very superficial level, look at, let's say, Black Lives Matter, the organization, it just totally dismisses an aspect of womanhood and motherhood. And if we follow what society says, we'll get caught up in saying, even though we want to be fluid, but here's our compartment.
Right.
And it goes against and it negates the image and reflection of Christ. So as the 21st century woman, we first have to make the decision. Our reflection is going to be of Christ, first and foremost.
First things first.
Not this, I can be all things, you don't have to call me. So this new thing where you have the person's name and then pronoun hers, his, their. What? Be steadfast in what it is. So make the decision first as to whose you are. If you're going to be out in society, then that means even though they think it's flexibility and freedom, it's craziness and confusion. For you to have to tell me hers and she, or they and them, or whatever the case may be, and then say, I don't need a man, I don't need this, I don't need this, I can do da-da-da, I can do that. Yeah. It's a sign of chaos and confusion, which God is not of. So we have to decide if we're going to be of decency and of order. And then follow through in those other things, and knowing that God has given us unique talents and gifts to be able to embody these things. So I think, even though it may sound archaic to other people, what it sounds to me is anti-Christ.
Now that's really interesting because the Bible uses certain terms. God as father, us as children. So there are certain relationships that are there. And if you believe God to be your creator, well, he didn't create anything haphazardly, right? So everything has a function, from insects to plants to animals and everything. So I guess you really have to decide, first things first, within which context are you speaking? Because if you're not a God-fearing, Jesus-following person, then we have all these other options here. But if you are, then the Bible says this is how we're to govern our lives.
Absolutely. Especially when you have intellects that will say Mother God and Mother Earth and that. So again, we're still negating the power and the image of Christ. We are the embodiment, both male and female. He made them. Right. So we have maleness, because it comes out in some ways in which we have to govern our lives. And then he gives us the softer side where we go, oh, woo, woo, woo. And if we notice in our relationship with Christ, he does he does the direct, and he'll go, choose you this day whom you will serve, whether it be God or man. And then he'll go, but if you call to me, I will take you out of all of your distresses.
Yeah.
Do you see that fine balance he does?
Yeah.
And it is so, it's so seamless and smooth. He is the smooth operator, not Michael Jackson.
So it's like the parent who, after you spank your child to discipline them,
I love you.
come and you
And
nurture
you hug them up.
Baby, I love you, but you better act right.
But you better get yourself together, because I will handle it.
Okay. With these hands.
And handle I will, yes. With these.
Yeah. So tell me further. Okay, so how does this Proverbs 31 woman look? She's working. She has a career, maybe. Maybe she's running a business.
Yes.
Is she cooking? Is she cleaning? When I was growing up, we had home economics in school.
They don't have that anymore.
That's not there anymore. Where they taught you how to set a table, where the forks went, where they taught you how to bake, how to take measurements, the idea of how to run and govern a home. So we were raised with that in the home and in school. Mila, in the cultures you grew up in, was that also taught outside of the home?
I think, I think every culture has that nurture in the home of how to run a home, food, kitchen and all that kind of stuff, and your place in the home and order of the home. But in defining this 21st century woman, I think it starts with knowing who you are in Christ.
In Christ.
Okay, as speaking, in our
as Christian.
As a Christian woman, as a virtuous woman, right? It's knowing who you are.
Yeah.
What is your calling? And what is your purpose to serve? Because we're all called to serve.
Right.
Okay. And when you know that, I think that's how you define who you are as a Proverbs 31 woman, because it's not going to be the same. We're not all going to be entrepreneurs. We're not all going to be parents. We're not all going to be married. We're not all, it's going to be different. But when you know your purpose and you know who and how you want to serve and allow God to lead you, because the path isn't going to be what you're thinking it's going to be.
Right.
And you've heard me say this, you got to let go of the how, but if you know what your vision is, if you know where you want to end, if you know where you're going, that journey is going to be a lot more beautiful and less chaotic. Right. And what I want to say is, why people are so lost is they don't have that guidance from a spiritual source.
Wow.
They don't have God in their life or something that they are looking towards. One of my colleagues just is dealing with a prospect. He does the same thing I do, and she's an atheist. And she said, sometimes I wish I just believed in something because it seems easier.
Interesting.
Isn't that crazy? But it's so true when you don't have that compass, right? Yeah. And that spiritual source that you're acknowledging where all the good comes from in your life. It's a lost feeling, right? So that's the journey I'm on, and it's always an opportunity to grow, right? Because now as a mom of 4 girls and girls who are going into pre-teenhood.
I'm sorry. Prayers.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot. And like you, Miriam, I didn't grow up like, all wanting to be glamorous and ta-da, and there's a fine balance of, okay, let's go out and let's go. The kids were just with my husband. They're cleaning up the garden. So they're in their coveralls and their gloves and they're cleaning the garden, and they see mom all, made up in a dress, and there's that too. We are all of that.
Right.
You can be who, and even this morning, we do this practice of gratitude every day. We try and do it every day. We're not perfect, but we start our morning with gratitude. So this morning, my oldest daughter, in her affirmation, she said, I can do whatever it is I want. I said, okay, let's just rephrase that. I am capable, to do many things.
Okay.
So let's own the fact that yes, we can be all this, but does it align with our purpose?
Right.
And understand, because you are God's creation, because you are his highest form of creation, you are capable to do it. Right. So yes, you can be all glamorous like your mama taught you, but you can also go and dig in the garden for potatoes. And that's a fine
Right.
person to be,
Right.
you know? So I think that if we have that and
Mhm.
we know that,
Yeah.
life is beautiful no matter what's going on in your external environment.
So I wanted to end with a question. Well, a couple questions, and I think I'm going to roll them up. So I wanted to ask, what was your ideal version, or your idea of an ideal woman today? And what's your idea of your ideal version of yourself?
Okay.
I want to roll that into Mila says not how, but what steps do you think you can take to get yourself from the actual person you are today to this, the idea of the potential woman that you could be? Because I think when Holly talks about intellectually, we can understand that we're always in the process of evolution.
Yes.
And it's for us to decide if we're evolving into better people or worse people. So there's always a change and a transition happening. So I think it's for us to think, okay, this is who I am today. This is how I behave. This is what I'm doing. This is who I am, but this is who I want to become. Have you guys ever thought about this transition?
Yes. I think that honestly, if we're truthful, that's a moving target. So
because information is being added. So
yeah. So I would say 10 years ago, I had a different version of myself. And I can honestly say 10 years later, I am that person that I saw myself to be. So, which we have to give ourselves, I have to constantly give myself credit for that. I visualized myself to be a fashion designer in New York, doing it 10 years ago. I really did. And I thought about it every single day. I saw myself in the back of a town car going home late at night. And the funny
thing, the Devil Wears Prada.
I did. And I did. And the funny thing is, my best friend, I was feeling a little low, and my very best friend goes, Twyla, do you realize you called me a year ago? You called me from the back of a town car at 11 o'clock at night from work from New York because you were designing a collection. And do you realize you told me that 10 years ago today? And I didn't even realize I had become the woman that I said I was going to be 10 years ago. And I think so. What I say is, it's always a moving target, but then you always have to give yourself a pat on the back for reaching for recognizing that you did it. And that if you did it once, you can do it again. So I think it's a moving target. I think it's something that we definitely, that's why I love vision boards, because we have to put it together and see and look at it and then give ourselves kudos for when we do it, but then also keep pushing and making sure that board changes, right? That vision changes. It's a constant target. So for me, this Proverbs woman she's like the pinnacle of it. Right? And so then we're always doing little things in the interim to get there. So I broke it down for myself into parts.
Do tell.
So I said, well, I'm already hardworking.
Okay.
I got that one. I got that one. I work pretty hard, and I do have an entrepreneurial and a creative spirit. But what I need to do is put more emphasis on the planning piece. How do I become a better planner in implementing the plan, and so for me, I broke her down into these virtues, right? Because it starts out, who can find a noble, virtuous woman, right? So these are virtues that we can strive for. And for me, it was, well, what do I need to work on
today to get
to get me to this big picture? And so for me, I broke her down into things that I need to work on today. And then tomorrow will take care of itself.
There you go. Okay.
That's where I am. So personally, for me, it is being a better planner.
Okay.
But for any woman, it could be anything. But I feel like this gives us kind of a high level vision
Mm-hmm.
through Christ's eyes
Okay.
of who he sees, all the potential that we can.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we have the high level, this is the goal, as Mila likes to say, we have these base camp goals, right?
Right.
So now I break that down into my base camp goals of, okay, so she's all that, right? She's perfection. Okay, let me break this down to Twyla level of what I need to work on, and then slowly work on those little things, because that's how I did 10 years ago, and I was able to reach that goal. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so now, 10 years from now, I have a different goal.
Yeah.
Right.
And I break that down into, okay, so these are the things that I need to do to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you recognize that 10 years ago, you wanted to be where you are now. And so now you're visualizing, you're seeing where you are now, and you're visualizing where you want to be in 10 years. It's important to write that so that, and then share it also so that your friends, us, and you can have it written. Yeah, I'm making that progression.
You did that. Hey, you did that. You did that, Miriam. You know what I mean? You did that, Mila. You did that.
You did that.
Right.
Give yourself a pat on the back. And there's something that goes along with that is, if you did that, then you can do that.
And
You
more.
So now you know you did that. You can do that. You did it.
Right.
You can do it again. You can do it better. Do it different.
Wow. Yes.
Well, and I want to build on what you said, Twyla. If I did it before, I can do it again. Actually, if anybody has done it, you can too.
Anyone, anywhere. Yeah.
Anyone, anywhere. If anybody has done it, so can you.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
It's been done before.
I think it's permission. So there's a chapter in my book, because again, single family home, spoiled. I learned how to make macaroni, cheese, and greens from my mother. Okay. Everything else, we're learning. But there's a chapter in my book, and it's called Boo in the Kitchen. And I use the metaphor of learning how to cook and understanding relationships. Because I thought it was great to go out. It was dealing with my spoiled rottenness that I did not learn or take the initiative to learn how to cook. So I had a fear of cooking and not being able to plan the proper meals. Now, I could plan the meals because I knew the health laws or what have you, but I didn't execute it. What I mean by permission is give myself permission to fail in making a dish, but then learning from that experience as to knowing how to build on that. So I use the Proverbs 31 woman in relation to relationships, because she has a relationship in different quadrants of community within herself.
Yes.
So right now I am seeing answered prayer as well.
Yeah.
Because a couple of years ago, you could not have told me that I would have been making certain things or wanting to make certain things.
Yeah.
So that permission is, I'm permitting myself to fail if I fail, but also learning through the process. So in that chapter where I talk about Boo in the kitchen, it's not so much the kitchen, it's now allowing myself to see how I'm supposed to plan for my family. Using the metaphor of cooking a particular dish, being able to handle rejection, being able to learn from it, and then move past it. So that permission goes beyond, I permit myself to be great, yes, but it's not, I also permit myself to continue to keep learning even within that greatness.
Or give yourself permission to be imperfect.
Right, because
learning.
Our socialization does not allow us to do that.
Right.
And then when you say, I am in a failed relationship, so you now have denigrated yourself. So I now call it a refinement. Because there are things that have to be massaged. So I see an answered prayer too. So Proverbs 31 is also an answered prayer as to God's imputing righteousness, because in his righteousness, we are Proverbs 31.
Right.
There is no level to attain. We're already there.
All right.
So that's part of that permission as well, is to see me as Christ sees me.
Okay.
Because we beat ourselves up, and that's part of the wiles of the devil. We beat ourselves up because we're not there, and we're not. And God's
where is there?
Right. And God's like,
there.
that's how I see you. What are you talking about?
Right.
Yeah, he sees you already
He sees you there. So
already there.
let's give permission to just be there, wherever that
Yeah.
there
Wherever
is
there
in our
is.
human mind, because righteously, he's
Yeah.
like, I've given it to you already.
It
You
is
have
there.
it.
You
You have
already
the tool.
have it.
Yeah, you already
Yeah.
have it. Oh,
So it's
you know what?
it's forgiveness.
Mm.
It's forgiveness.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's permission and
Yes.
forgiveness.
Yes.
Okay. So I forgive you, Mila, for not being the Pinterest mom, but that's not what your kids need. Your
Right.
kids need your authenticity and
Right.
crazy, whatever it is you're bringing to
Right.
the table. That's what they need, not perfect.
Yeah.
Right.
Picture perfect. Okay,
Right.
that's boring.
It is.
Flawed is exciting.
Right.
You learn from the mistakes.
Yes.
Think about where we have come from. You
Woo.
are not going to be this person if you didn't go
Right.
through this, that mess up, hiccup,
Right.
whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
It's growth.
Yeah.
Yes.
There is no
Yeah.
failure. It's learning. It's
Yes.
growth, and it's
Oh,
we
it's
are
building you
Proverbs
up.
31.
Right.
Yes.
It is it. You
Yes.
are who you need to be in
Yes.
God's eyes. Claim it,
Yeah.
forgive, and just go forward with it,
Yeah.
whatever
So
that is.
I'm gonna use my hair as an example. For 10 years or more, I've wanted to cut my hair like this, and I kept going, I don't know how it's gonna look, da 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 da.
It looks so good.
Looks
Really
great.
does. I like the color.
So last year, I was sitting in my hairstylist chair, and this is how much subconscious has a power over your conscious.
Ooh, big.
She was asking, well, how do you want to style your hair? And I was like, I don't care, just cut it. And I didn't put a qualifier behind it, and I just said, all right, let's go with it. Let's just see what she does. And I always had a battle with hair. So I was the little girl that was always called a boy until I smiled really brightly. So that's why people go, your smile is so big. Well, yes, I had to, because they thought because I didn't have a whole lot of hair growing up until these came. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic as well.
Part two.
So I'm sitting in the hairstylist chair, and I said, just cut it. And then I was like, she's down to this much. And then when she did it, I was like, oh, well, all right then. So it was a permission to do something that I had already thought about in my mind for the last 10 years. And I tell you no lie. And when my husband saw me, he went, I said, I didn't ask if you liked it. I said, how's it look? He said, well, it fits you. I said, thank you. Because I told you I was going to cut my hair. And that was a permission, because I was allowing him to see the confidence. Because part of that was, I can't carry this. My thing is, if I cut my hair this long, I have to carry it with the clothes, with the accessories, with the da-da-da, and the dee-dee-dee, and the I carry it with sweats. I carry it with jeans.
Because it's you.
Inside out.
And it's that permission of saying, that. And I said, oh, look at. So
and
when I did it,
you're fabulous because you are fabulous, and you're gonna be fabulous with long hair, short hair, bald, covered.
Right. So and my older friends, they're like, you're never going back. I was like, girl, no, because wait till we get to 50, it's gonna go to the scalp with some blonde, something. But it's just that permission and forgiveness, because now I've forgiven myself, because 10 years I don't think I could have carried it the way I carry it now.
Right. You had to grow into it.
So it's also a growing process too that we've talked about as well.
So I wanted to tie that in, because there's a hymn that I really like. I like the way words are put together in hymns, and it's called How Firm a Foundation.
Yes.
Right? How firm a foundation, ye saints of the Lord, is laid for your faith in his excellent word. And there's a stanza that says, he put you through certain things, thy dross to consume and thy gold to refine. When we're talking about Proverbs 31 woman, and God already sees you complete, but there are some things that he has to refine. And he's going to do that and bring out those wonderful qualities that you already have hidden, maybe covered, maybe buried.
Yeah. And because in my journey, in that 10-year journey to get to from where I saw myself to where I was, there was a refinement of who it was an understanding. It was a relationship building. There were tons of mistakes along the way. But all of that built into this person that I saw myself 10 years ago. So I totally get you in this refinement, this building of a person. I wouldn't be able to have, so then when I made it to become a designer, then I realized, oh, that's not the total purpose. I actually realized the purpose of my business while designing, because then I realized, oh, wow, there's so many creative people who don't know this business, and it took an additional 5 years for me to be in the business and get all the experience that I needed, that refinement, that those jobs where I had those bosses who had absolutely no respect for me, and managing a staff and understanding how to build a line, not just be a designer, but how to build a line. All of those things now pour directly into what I do as a consultant. Now, when I get a text message from one of my clients at 9:00 in the morning, I felt this sweatshirt and it was so soft. What was that? Oh, that was just an enzyme washer. Da, 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 da. I'm recalling information that I'm like, what? It was when I was in my boss, who I couldn't stand's office, and she was like, why is this so hard? And I had to go and figure out why it was so hard. And then one of my coworkers telling me, oh, it's just an enzyme wash. You could just soften it by doing blah, 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 blah. Now I recall that experience, which terrified me at the time. Which now gives me the opportunity to impart information for my client, become that resource that she so desperately needed, and therefore continue to fulfill this overarching purpose that I have been charged with. And I didn't know that was the purpose. I didn't know.
You were going through, you didn't know.
I didn't know that was the purpose until I did experience all these things. Then I was like,
so it's refining and uncovering and bringing it to the surface as you have these talents and abilities, Twyla. Use them. Use them to make this situation better, make this person better, make this service better. It's I like that refining, Miriam, but it's also like panning for gold.
Yes.
Because we have so much talent and ability that we haven't tapped into.
Right.
It's incredible. And that's why we grow, because that's how we draw those that we haven't tapped into yet. That's how we draw that out. Because if we don't have those challenges, if we don't have that opportunity to grow, then we won't build that. We won't even uncover it.
Right.
Holly, what's that scripture about God's plans for his children? God has all these plans.
Is it Jeremiah 29:11?
Yeah, Jeremiah, that one.
It is.
God has all these plans for his children to prosper, but we don't even see the big purpose. He has to give it to us in small doses, in chunks, because God knows we'll try to figure out the how.
Yeah, right.
And we done made a whole plan, and he's like, that ain't even what I go.
And he's like, who's driving the car?
That wasn't
because
even what.
He will give us a U-turn, and he'll go, now try me.
GPS, redirecting.
He will redirect you, and then try me.
Yeah.
Are you going to let me do this, or are we going to? Because there's a point in when he goes, I am God.
Yeah.
I need you to be still and know I am to be exalted above the earth. So he will go, okay, you want to try it your way? Go ahead. And it's not even to the point of the delusion that New Testament talks about. He'll just go, I'm going to let you go in your stead and see how well you do. And then you come back like in Psalms 139, search me, O Lord. If there's anything wrong with me, clean it out and then turn me. And the guy goes, if you had just
the first place.
Yeah, the first place, not the last place.
As my girlfriend says, first beginning. In the first beginning.
Begin at the beginning.
Because he gives us a chance to go, do it your way.
Yeah.
Try it out and see.
Yeah.
But then we come back and David says, oh, but taste and see that
the Lord
God is so good.
Yeah.
All the time.
And so we have to look at all of those different things. And one other verse dealing with how we deal with plans is God said, if you commit your plans to you, I will make them happen.
Yeah.
I will establish your thoughts.
Yeah.
That is so powerful.
So
Your
powerful.
thoughts?
Yes. Yes.
He said, but if you committed to me, I'll do it.
Yes.
So that's a whole nother thing that we don't deal with. We always go to Jeremiah 29:11, and that's for folk in captivity. Hello?
That is true.
Commit thy way to the Lord is for those who are free, who are doing things.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
Hallie.
Okay, so ladies, we do have to wrap this up at some point. It's getting so good to me. It's just getting so good to me. But I wanted to leave the
What
audience.
was the question? I don't even know.
Right.
Moving on from it, whatever it was. It was about the evolution of getting from actual to potential. And I wanted to leave our audience with something that I learned from Mila. So I was Mila's client, my mindset coach, and really what she helped me do is just go from, I like to say, go from Miriam 1.0 to Miriam 2.0. And I think in our lifetimes, we're going to be many different versions of ourselves.
Yes.
Because life requires it.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the early exercises that Mila had me do was create a life script. And that has been immensely helpful because she gave me permission, to give myself permission, think with no limit, no boundary. What does your life look like? So this is an exercise I'm giving the audience. And to you, ladies, what does, Mila, you already know this, but what does your life look like?
Good to do often.
No, sorry?
It's good to do often.
Yes. No limiting beliefs, no restraint. Who are you with? Where do you live? How do you live?
How does it
Where
feel?
are you going?
Yeah.
How does it feel where you are? How does it feel? How do you feel when you're with these people? What are you doing? What is your occupation? What is your work? Are you happy?
Are you happy?
Are you happy?
Authentically happy.
Authentically. So for the audience, I would like you to do this exercise and just go in a quiet place and think about it and just let your mind go and just think about what this looks like and write it out. Write it out. And once it's all out of your head, submit it to God.
Yes.
Lord, this is what I think my best could be. What do you think? Because as Christian women, we want to be aligned, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So this is what I think. What do you think? And when he gives you like the final version, Lord, show me how to get from where I am to that woman I want to be.
A few moments later.
Her husband boasts in the gates. So she's known in her cultural community. But that also means she has to have a group of women that are behind her going, come on, girl. You can do this.
You can do
Come
it.
on.
So
and we
that's
never
what
talk about that part.
I wanted to say that and I forgot, because in this story of this affirmation circle is my sister-in-law that said something that got me.
Okay.
And she's a pastor.
Ladies, I just want to let you know, this is getting so good. I recorded it again. We'll see how it
goes.
But let's just go with it.
But she's a pastor in our community, so she's a leader. And for her to say some of the things that she said about me, it was very empowering. And that's what I want to say to the women, to you women, is we need to lift each other up.
Yes.
You know? And that's what a Proverbs 31 woman would do.
Yes.
To lift each other up.
Well, in I love the clear word, because it says at the very end, it says her children respect her and say so.
Right.
And her husband praises her.
Yes.
And says many women do wonderful things, but you surpass them all.
Hey.
Listen.
Come on. Hey. Come on.
Listen, they do all of the things, but you are everything.
Over and above.
That's right. Now we just call the babysitter because we need some time alone. Let's go.
Number 5.
But that's affirming too, because here's the thing. We don't talk about the sexuality within Proverbs 31. She handles her home.
Yeah,
he does.
Well, that's what my husband
handles.
My mother always says that. My mother says, I have many responsibilities, and one of them is a dog.
Okay.
That's a whole thing right about this.
True.
We don't
Listen.
talk about this. We talk about it in a political stance, you know, with this non-binary and fluidity and that.
Yeah.
But God gives us a certain thing, and I'm learning this.
Yeah.
There's a power that we have that's through sexuality
Ooh, talk
and
about
sensuality.
Mhm.
Baby, come on. When he said he trusts her with his heart,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
means she's doing some things
Okay.
to
Okay.
open up his heart and
Right.
some other stuff that leads into that.
It's
So
so
we have to talk
powerful.
about this in a totality, and we don't do her enough justice.
You know
It's
what?
so
I
powerful.
love that you just said that because in my prior version of Miriam, I was the brouhaha, busting doors. I'm a woman. I don't need. I'm finna do. Boom, boom, boom. But then I learned, no, darling, in version 2.0, that's not what strength looks like or sounds like.
Yes.
Strength doesn't get louder than this.
No.
Okay. You can be calm and assertive. And then you can also, there's a softness in our strength. You understand? It's, you just lay it out there, baby, you know, I think this and this and that, but you so smart or you so strong, and I just know you're gonna come up with the right thing.
That's right.
But when you walk in the room, the whole room lights up.
Yeah.
It is an inside out.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, you know there's something about that woman.
But that's the
who
thing.
walks in
When
there.
you know, you don't have to do the loud stuff or the ostentatious stuff because you're not convincing anyone.
No.
You
Well,
just
that's
assume it.
Because you're already it. You're already
and
it.
the
And it's through
beautiful thing.
touch.
Oh, and the beautiful thing.
What'd you say about touch? I'm sorry. Hold on 1 second.
Hold on. I'm gonna let Twyla, and I'll come back to touch.
No, I was gonna say, and the most beautiful thing is how it ends. And I love Proverbs because it's so poetic. And it says, "Charm is deceptive and beauty disappears, but a woman who honors the Lord will be praised. Reward her for what she has done. Let her works be praised by everyone in the city."
That's right.
So this woman, they've made a point to say she's a bad woman.
Okay.
And you need to recognize her for all the things that she is.
And give her her props.
And give her props. Because guess what?
Yes.
Guess what? God even honors her.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what's beautiful to me is it is sometimes we ask women to dim themselves. That's not biblical.
And that does not glorify God.
And that does
I
not
created you.
God.
So why would you dim yourself?
Dimmer, less.
When we talk about these wiles of the devil, because I know what you're alluding to is the poem by Marianne Williamson talks about not dimming. And are you afraid of the light and the power from within? Now we have to understand that comes from God.
Yeah,
exactly.
But we're also talking about the touch that he allows us to have.
Yes.
Physical, relational, emotional, all these different communal, healing, all these touches. But when I'm talking about within Proverbs 31, that touch that she gives to her husband when he goes, baby, here it is. That's an all-encompassing touch.
Yeah.
So we have to dissect her in so many different ways that we haven't even begun to do so.
Yeah. This
We
needs
haven't
to be
even begun to do so. This
But
needs to be a series.
Here's the thing that I want to address too is women who don't feel up to par with her.
Come on, Mila.
You are worthy.
Yeah.
It is all in the way you think of you. So imagine if you knew that your daughter or son was thinking the thoughts you were thinking about yourself. Would you be okay with that?
Right.
No.
You would not be okay with that.
Not at all.
So why are you thinking that about you?
Very good.
So
Very
it's the
good.
purpose. You need to know you are placed in this earth for a reason.
Yes.
God has a purpose for your life.
And it's unique.
It is.
100%.
David talks about this. God has marvelous are your works and thoughts about me. Can you imagine the Creator has a thought about you?
I know that's
The Creator has a thought about you.
Every detail.
He said, I fashioned the days.
Planet. Yes.
I have fashioned your days before you even lived them. What?
Yeah.
Unreal.
The ultimate planner.
Yeah.
Now, if you think that every day, life is amazing. Life
has to be.
Poof.
Yeah.
Again, even this conversation is releasing.
Yeah.
because
Yes.
we don't talk about this.
No.
You don't see a pastor sit up and talk about this in church from the pulpit. He just goes, women, you need to be a Proverbs 31. Well, hell, hold on.
Let's
Let's
break
talk
that
about
down.
this.
Yeah.
Let's break this down.
Yeah.
This
Are
is a
you the
series.
partner of a Proverbs 31 woman?
Mm.
We haven't even gotten there yet.
Can we talk about that? A lot of times within our church, we had a conversation about single men and single women within our church, and there was this study, and what men look for, and what women are looking for or expecting. But even, are you equipped to even have a Proverbs 31 woman? Can you handle it? Can you support it?
Baby, please.
A real question.
Because
Yes.
it is, because in the text it says, her husband has confidence in her abilities.
Yeah.
And then it goes about all the things that she has, but there's a level of confidence that the man has to have to even have a Proverbs woman in his home. There's a level of confidence. He has to have a level of respect for God.
So it is
and
in
for her.
it is in their nurture. It is in our nurture that we are becoming the Proverbs 31 man or woman.
Yes.
It is in our nurture. So as educators, as influencers, as parents, as aunties, whatever it is that you are to a child, you nurture them to become a Proverbs 31 young man or woman now.
So that means we are equippers.
So that means we don't just go up in age, we go up in experience and wisdom that we can then pass.
Wisdom.
Yes.
And
Wisdom that
And
we
wisdom.
pass on.
And it's funny because in Proverbs 1,
Yep.
the very end of it, it compares wisdom to a woman.
That's right.
Yes.
He is like rubies.
Wisdom is like a beautiful woman. Is how it says. It's Proverbs 1:20. It talks about wisdom as a beautiful young woman who has booth in the marketplace, and it talks about how gracious and how you foolish people, how much longer do you want to go in your own foolishness? How much longer do you want to laugh? And it talks about, this is wisdom. Wisdom is compared to a woman.
That's right.
Yeah. Now I want to go back to Holly, what you said, how he trusts her, and how the passage says the children recognize her and they give her props and they say, so Mom, you're
they
great.
rise and call her blessed. Yes.
Yeah. So there's this phrase that's been going through my mind, and it's the ministry of marriage, and by extension the ministry of family, because for him to trust her, she has made it safe. You can come, you can confide. I will not judge you. I will not condemn you. My every intention towards you is love and support. Now, what that means is, I love how Whitley Phipps says it, and I said it on the Bible study. Whitley Phipps, and I love this expression. Our job as preachers, as children of God, is to reflect, reveal, and resemble the character.
That was a good sermon. I remember that.
Yes, he said that on more than one occasion. And so if we as women do this in the home, and the man also does it, then that means to a certain extent I take care of myself, but I also can pour into your cup. And because you're not selfish about it, you're pouring into my cup. And together we are revealing, resembling, and reflecting the character, and we're affecting the children that might come out of this, and we're affecting our family and the community. So this is like little nuclei of influence, like that God can work with and spread his love and his influence in the world. This is like, I don't know.
So it's almost the embodiment of Matthew 28 when God says, go into all to the world and preaching the good gospel to every kindred, tribe, and tongue.
Right.
He's not calling us as just an individual to do this. He's calling us as a community, as a unit. Because as a married couple or even single, you are to have exactly what you said, those three different R's, the reveal, the resemble, the reflect. Because when people see us,
Yeah.
they should see something different
Yeah.
without you ever opening your mouth. So when my husband and I, even throughout our refinement, when we're out and about, people go, "Oh, you guys are such a cute couple," and I just look at him like, "Would you get yourself together?"
Pull it together.
You know, because they see it, so they see the essence of who we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
God, people have to see the essence of who you are.
Yeah.
And that's that part of the Proverbs 31 woman when he talks about he trusts in her, his heart knows that she means him no harm.
Yeah.
The essence of her. So I'll share this. I was visiting with my husband, and I just started rubbing his back. And I didn't announce, baby, right now I'm going to start rubbing your back, and you're going to feel the love that I have for you.
Through my palm, as I rub.
Through my palm and da. I just started rubbing, and all of a sudden he went forward so I could get more of his back. And the touch that I used to do, he fell right in sync with the essence of what that was. And that just had me to think, and I said, wow, God, you really are about essence and what we're projecting.
So powerful.
And I think a lot of times we just talk about the superficiality of it, but the essence of this woman and allowing her husband to allow her to be who she is and for him to be who he is primary, because the woman is the primary teacher in her home.
Yes.
And we know that. So we're now allowing for future generations, even outside when Twyla was talking about the aunties or what have you, we are allowing young girls to understand what it is to be a virtuous woman.
Yeah.
In every stage. And I think this thing is so powerful, and we have not even touched the surface.
Yeah.
Honestly. And but God he's intentional, because he goes, I'm so deep, I just need you all to just dig a little deeper.
Yes.
On that old hymn, dig a little deeper into his love.
Yes. And I love that, but it goes, I want to take it even further, because you cannot give that love to your partner, your husband, if you do not have it for yourself.
Yeah.
So that's where it starts, right? It starts there, allowing that self love in the way God loves you, accepting you for all your flaws. And I love the footnote here in my Bible. It says that do not see her, this woman described in Proverbs 31, as a model to imitate in every detail. Your days are not long enough to do everything she does. Okay,
right.
Your days are not long enough
That's
to
what
do
I was
everything
saying.
she does.
That's what I was saying. How are you going to do this?
But see her instead as an inspiration to all you can be.
Right.
We can't be just like her, but we can learn from her industry, integrity, and resourcefulness.
Yeah.
Love
we
it.
can learn.
Right?
And I love that, because I think being single, one of the things that I'm learning in studying, particularly with Mila, is, you may not have the thing that you're desiring right now, but you can definitely dream and prepare for that thing.
Absolutely.
You can definitely. And so as a woman, it says to me, I might not be married, but I might as well prepare for it. I need to.
Yes, ma'am.
I should work toward it.
Yes, ma'am.
Woman.
Yes, ma'am.
I should build my character in such a way.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I will attract.
Yes, ma'am.
I will attract it. So for me, one of the things that I've been trying to do in all aspects of my life as I prepare for these things that I am praying for, one of those things is, if I want to be a wife, a godly wife, if I want to be this woman, then I am supposed to be one that my husband looks up to and respects and adores, and I should be the one that the community has lots of respect for, and I should be
living from the goal.
Have this
living from the
entrepreneurial spirit and this creativity, all these things. Let's work on them now, because
living.
Even though the text is in the context of a married woman, it's in a general woman that I would assume, if it's in here, then she's attracting the king, right?
Yes.
The mother is talking to her prince. And she's saying that these are the virtues of your queen.
Absolutely.
That's so great. That's so great. This is one of the notes that I had here where it says she's a faithful bride, and it says a virtuous woman is a faithful wife. But don't think that you can't be a Proverbs 31 woman if you're single. You absolutely can. In fact, as a Christian, you are the bride of Christ. You are called to be faithful to him first and foremost.
And so how you gonna be faithful to, you need to be faithful to
there you go.
How about you learn to be faithful here
before you get there. And
before
so
you get
to add on to that, Mila, there is a text, Holly, you might know it. It says something about covering. And it says, I think Paul writes it, and he's explaining that women should cover their heads. You don't need to if you're married, because your husband is your covering. But for single women who are not yet married, Christ is your covering. So your responsibility to your husbandly duties, meaning of, you know, being that woman, that virtuous woman, your accountability is to Christ. And when your husband comes into it, I don't know that your accountability shifts to him, but it's like Christ is the husband, so he takes care, he protects, he provides. The husband will take that on, but the two of you together are still under Christ.
So if we look at hovering, there's a scripture that someone was breaking down in the beginning with creation, where it says the Holy Spirit hovered over the earth. Hovering was a hedge of protection. And if we look at Ecclesiastes 4:9-12, where it talks about that three-strand cord.
Cord is not so easily broken.
So, and it talks about if one is cold, the other is too warm, and one is not. And so we do this misnomer when people go, it takes two to have a marriage. No, it doesn't. Take three.
It takes three.
And even if the one person may be missing, the two that are still standing draws. So that's been my thing for when I call my refinement. It may look like there's not a three-strand, but there is. Because just in that time when I was with my husband, I started rubbing his back. That three-strand came together just in that one moment. So even in your singleness, in your preparation, God is allowing you to be able to express yourself in such a fullness, without the counter of someone else going, "You're doing it wrong. I don't like the way you did that." Blah, blah, blah. Take that time, and I wish I had known that before, because I got married as an older bride. I was in my 40s. So there's a lot of things that God has to deconstruct. I understand. A lot of things that God has to deconstruct with me. Because remember, I told you my mother used to say men are all stupid. Subconsciously, that's how I went into my marriage. I was the leader. I did everything. And after a while, my husband said, "Well,
what do you need me for?"
It's on. Well, he didn't say that. He said, "It's on you," which is worse. Every failure was on me.
Ouch.
And I was like, I didn't set up for that. So in that singleness, in your preparation, make sure you're fully expressing and getting to know all these different aspects, because you're doing it without this other person's ideal. You're doing it in God's ideal. And now with this refinement period, I'm having to refine and do it in God's ideal. So even when he comes with something negative, my sweet aroma, which is Ephesians 5, the fragrance of Christ, now changes his whole atmosphere. So I don't say anything. I started rubbing his back and praying over him. And I watched how the Spirit changed that whole dynamic to the point where he looked at me like, "I don't even want to go, but I have to go." And I was like, "Gotcha."
You don't have to.
You know, so it is something to be said about preparation. So you're absolutely right, Twyla. You're absolutely right. And I didn't have the opportunity of premarital context or counseling, because when they heard that we were going to be an interreligious couple, most people did the normal, "Oh, girl, you can't do da 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 da." Well, that's not showing them the love of Christ. So now we missed opportunity early on to have that. And then my warped sense and his warped sense created a whole new warped sense of that. So this refinement got us going, I'm trying to show you me to you, so you can then show me to him,
Him.
and then he can come back to me. So it's just,
Yeah, it's bigger than you.
it's bigger than me, and it's a misogyny. There's a secular song. I don't know how recent it is because I'm out of it, so I know that I am. But it's by Lettucey, and it's called All the Way. And at one point in the song, she goes, "This is bigger than us."
Mm.
And marriage, relationship is always bigger than the two people.
Mm-hmm.
And until we realize that and go, God has to be in all of this.
Yeah.
So yeah, this needs to be a series because God could have just had the Bible end right there because it encompasses the plan of salvation.
Yeah.
It encompasses forgiveness, repentance, coming back, staying, making the relationship work, staying steadfast. I mean, he does it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this has just been phenomenal.
Yeah. So good.
Phenomenal.
So good.
Thank you so much, Mary,
Thank
for
you.
including me.
I'm so glad. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I just hope this is a source of inspiration and encouragement for the women who watch it, and that it seeps into their personal experience.
Yes.
Yeah. So
because this is also part of marriage ministries too.
Yeah. So women's ministry is under the umbrella of family ministry.
Okay.
So, okay, I know we need to go, and I do need to go. But when you were saying that about your beliefs, your husband's, and then you're creating your own, here's one thing that I've started doing recently is questioning my beliefs.
Yep.
Is it 100% true, Mila?
Yeah.
And why do you believe that?
Yeah.
Is it your own?
Yeah.
Whose belief is it? It's amazing. It is an amazing practice because I'm learning to do this because I'm trying to say something to my kids and I'm like, whoa. Is it 100% true? Is that your subconscious mother speaking through you?
Come on, Mila.
Or is it what you want your children to learn? So question your beliefs in everything that you do.
Yeah.
Because it's not always 100% true.
Oh, maybe we have faulty information that we need to correct before we pass on.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
It is all in our nurture. People always say it's in my nature. It's actually in your nurture.
Absolutely.
So how are you how you are nurturing people, little people, big people, or whoever people is going to show up in the things that they do. So nurture from in here with Christ.
Yes.
So that makes me think of the passage where it's written, "You anoint my head with oil and my cup."
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So God does the filling and the indwelling, and from there the abundance fills out.
Yes.
And allows you to change, because when people say, "Oh, it's my nature," that means they're giving up the changing process. But that nurture, Mila, you're right on point.
They're not even owning it. It's in my nature.
No accountability.
So I put everything Antichrist or Christ. Period. That's Antichrist.
That's deep.
So, ladies, with that said, this has been so juicy, so informative, so fulfilling. I thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your contribution and your insights. And I hope our audience gets some good jewels that they can carry with them from this conversation. Until the next time, be well, be blessed, and walk with the King today and be a blessing.
Amen.
All right. Until next time.
Thank
you so much, ladies.
What a phenomenal discussion. Ladies, did you take notes? Did you glean any nuggets from that phenomenal discussion? I know I did. I am striving every day to be a biblical woman, that Proverbs 31 woman living in a 21st century world. Thank you so much to our moderator. Thank you so much to our panelists. We appreciate you taking the time to spend your 3 o'clock hour with us. And we hope to see you again next Saturday afternoon, same time, same place. Be blessed.